Razorback Nation, welcome back into another episode of Hawgs on the Hill podcast, episode 29, your go-to podcast for an in-depth into all things Arkansas sports. Join us as we dissect the victories, analyze the plays, and revel in the spirit of the Hawgs. Episode 29 is brought to you by Homefield. Step into the legacy of collegiate style with Homefield's premium vintage apparel. Embrace the spirit of your alma mater or even just your favorite team with their meticulously crafted and comfortable, stylish collections. Elevate your game day attire and celebrate the rich history of college sports with Homefield, where tradition meets modern comfort in every stitch. You can check out Homefield and get 15% off that first order with Variety Sports promo code in all caps. Holiday times are here. If you want to get that favorite loved one a new Razorback gear, whatever, maybe a t-shirt, pullover, quarter zip, hoodie, whatever you name it, they got it. Go check them out at Homefield and use that promo code and receive 15% off that first order. And we will just jump right in. Today was National Signing Day. Lots of surprises for Arkansas. A lot of things that we didn't expect. As things continue with signing day, getting kids signed, the portal is continuously active. Quick update on that. Just right before we started on here, got the update. Isaiah Satania will be entering the portal. Doesn't mean he's for sure gone and can't come back, but that's an interesting portal jump to me because I thought he was a guy that definitely would be back and be one of the top receivers for this position group next year, especially with everybody else that you're losing. Andrew Armstrong to the NFL draft. Everybody else out of eligibility. You think Broden, you think Tesla, guys are out of eligibility. And, you had one guy, Isaiah Satania, that'll be back. You still got Jordan Anthony, some other guys we'll talk about here in a little bit. But your thoughts on that, a quick reaction on Isaiah Satania entering the portal here?
Yeah, man, that's big. It's really big. Arkansas still needed to go to the portal to get some bigger type receivers. He's only like 5'11", 190 something pounds. But he was a dangerous threat, especially over the top. And you saw that in the Auburn game. He practically had the touchdown that won the game. And boy, it just came out of left field. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if it's more like a he's gone, he's ready to get out of here, or if he's more let's go in the portal, see what I can get, and if I can't get anything, then pop back in, kind of like a Bryce Stevens, which also, unless he's moved on, he's still a thing, right?
I think so.
He's still on the roster. He didn't play at all this year, which, who knows? But he might be that next guy up. I don't know. But, like you said, we got Jordan Anthony and some of the newer receivers out there, and then you got the Monte Harrison.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, that's something to really consider. I agree with several of these comments here, about Isaiah. Definitely sad to see him go. Wasn't necessarily expecting it at all. But to Pigpen's point here, and it's a true thing here. Bobby's never had trouble getting wide receivers. Yeah. That's something you got to think about. And I think, some of these wide receivers that are in the portal and, potentially some of these freshmen coming in too are going to look at what he did with Andrew Armstrong. Look at what he did with a guy that, if you think about when he came in from Texas A&M, I believe it was like Commerce. So a super small school, and turned him into a 1,000-yard SEC receiver in his first season as OC. And, theoretically, year two under Bobby Petrino should be better and more efficient. So, that's something to look at positively there. But, you always hate to see a guy enter the portal, especially a guy like Isaiah Satania that, he's a hometown kid, from Fayetteville area. Originally, his recruiting process was interesting because I remember he had committed to Texas A&M, decommitted at the last minute and committed back to Arkansas. And, has been here, he's a redshirt sophomore. So, he's been here for 3 years now and really saw an uptick in snap share this year. playing a lot more and, being, like you said, that kind of deeper threat, that speedy wide receiver that, you could use on the drag routes, those deep crossing routes that we saw him, be the bulk of his receptions this year is him coming, quickly across the middle on a deep drag route or one of those deep crossing routes and catch it right before it goes out of bounds sideline. And now you're going to have to either find a replacement for that. You still got Jordan Anthony, who's very similar type of player as Isaiah, speedy track type guy. So I don't know. It's just I think it all goes back to that's something I wasn't expecting. But we'll have to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, and I mean, I just I have this Discord I'm in, and usually it's pretty good information. I'm not going to share any of the names, but I'm seeing this post that some people are saying that are rumored to go, and I mean it's some big names, so that's not good. And then especially like at the tight end position, I mean we talk about the receivers a lot, but I mean we have Luke Hawgs and Shamar Easter right now, right? That's about it. So yeah, they're gonna be hunting in the transfer portal.
Yeah, and I don't know eligibility wise. You still got Andreas Puska as well that transferred.
Yeah, in. And you know what? He turned out to be not a bad pass catching tight end either, especially towards the end of the season. So maybe we got something there. And he's more a traditional tight end, anyways. But yeah, but Luke Hawgs, that would be a huge loss. And then we haven't seen a whole lot of Shamar Easter. I mean, he's played in some of the less important games, but he hasn't done bad in any of those games. So I'm not sure why he isn't getting more opportunities. More or less, it was probably just the talent in front of him. But either way, we're going to be light in both of those areas, and it doesn't matter how good Taylor Green does or how much the offense could progress if we don't have people to throw it to. But like to Pigpen's point, they're going to find receivers. Now, I don't know if this is the big thing though, the NIL. I don't know if they're going to have that fixed in time to get those big guys in. Because I mean, if you follow Hayes Fawcett, is that what his name is from On3? He's been busy all day today and all day yesterday. He's just posting stuff out about elite guys leaving their schools. And if they don't have the revenue sharing thing lined up to get these guys in here and, be able to follow through with it, I don't know how well they're going to do in the portal with such a huge position like that. Yeah. The next one's going to be offensive line because they've got to do something with the offensive line too. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah. Good point here. Any big name receivers from other schools in Portland? I mean, there's several out there so far. One of the big ones I've heard of is the receiver from NC State, Conception.
Yeah, Conception.
He's out there. I think there's rumored to be a couple guys from Alabama that's going to be entering the portal that might be interested in coming over to Arkansas. But, I mean, it's going to be a lot of, I think, to do with Bobby Petrino and having to go out there and be like, hey, let's see what I did with Andrew Armstrong. Look at what I did with my receivers when I was here before. I love to air it out, throw the ball, get you here, we'll get you in the SEC, and, get you pro ready. I think, and that's what I think is going to have to be the pitching point to a lot of these guys you're trying to go out to get. And part of it's going to be, hey, you come here, we've got 3 open, playing time spots right now. I mean, of course, you're going to have the guys on the roster that are going to compete for it as well. But if you're really going out and wanting to get, some real dudes in the portal, then that's what you're going to be telling these guys. I mean, that's just a fact of, hey, if you want to come play in the SEC, we've got a starting spot for you. I mean, that's essentially, if you think about it, what happened with Taylor last year. You still had, KJ left before Talon, the thought was, oh, you're probably going to either start Jacoby Criswell or you've got Malachi Singleton. Well, they went out and got Talon, and he was probably told essentially, hey, here's the starting job. We want to bring you in, because you're not going to bring in a guy like him, and I don't know the exact number, and pay him NIL to not be the starter or just come in and compete for the potential starting job.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got Conception. There's Micah Hudson from Tech, who's rated the same as a transfer. Jonte Cook, he's from Texas. I don't know if he was a former 5-star, I believe, too. I mean, you've got quite a bit of talent already in the transfer portal that they could go and they could try and pick from. But yeah, it's who Bobby can convince to come in here. And I mean, like, Conception, that dude was about the only thing that NC State had for him too. So that would be a huge get if they try to go after him. And he's a big guy too, I think. Let me pull up his stats real quick.
So, and while you're doing that,
no, he's not. He's 5'11", 180. So he'd be like a Satania type person.
Yeah. Another guy to keep your eye on is, that it came out today, is a former player that played for Petrino at Missouri State, is Raylan Sharp. He's transferring from Fresno State. He's a guy that I think wanted to come to Arkansas last year, but we didn't really have a spot to sign him. And he's interested again, coming from Fresno State, played under Ronnie Fouch and Petrino, who are both at Missouri State prior. And another name I thought was interesting that I saw was you've got Sam Mbake, former Razorback receiver that transferred out. Looked like he had real potential at Kilgore Junior College. Who knows? Maybe you see him return. We've seen that happen in other sports. Basketball guys transfer out and come back and have success. Who knows? Maybe Sam Mbake comes back to Arkansas and, finds his way on the field with some success.
Yeah. And I mean, they're still, who knows? They might be able to get is it Jaden Wilson? No, not Jaden Wilson. He's already gone to UCLA.
Yeah. Are you talking about a guy that's entered the portal that's?
Yeah.
So right now,
Dozier. So Dozier hasn't committed anywhere yet, has he?
He's just entered. And so far, if you look at the roster right now, your other receivers that are still technically eligible in here, you've got Jordan Anthony, you've got Bryce Stevens, you got CJ Brown, you've got Cross Johnson that you signed last year, Monte Harrison that you mentioned earlier, Desmond James. And so you've got a handful of names there, but those don't necessarily just jump out at you as guys that can come in and just kind of automatically be a wide receiver one. But to Pigpen's point here, a bowl win will definitely help our perception with recruits, and to see a W next to Arkansas's name will definitely help. And you might see that. I don't know how quickly. Some guys have already committed. You might have guys commit before bowl games. We'll find out later this week where we'll be headed. The last projection I saw was the Birmingham Bowl versus Pitt. So that could be an interesting matchup against a very good Pitt team that, for a while there, the first half of the season was doing quite well, and the ACC kind of fell off a little bit at the tail end there. But so, yeah, that's a good point too. Getting that bowl win, sitting at 7-6 would definitely help in terms of, trying to go out and get guys. But so let's turn our attention to, signing day. What we talked about, title of the episode, that's the big thing. Arkansas got some surprises today, but the biggest win, I think, for Arkansas today was being able to hold on to Tavion Wallace. He is your highest recruit in this recruiting class, 4-star linebacker, number one linebacker in the 2025 class, I believe, out of Georgia. There was a late push from Florida State. He visited, I think, twice. And then there was the potential rumor that T-Will might try to go interview for that Florida State job as well. But they went with the Nebraska defensive coordinator, I believe it was, that took over there. And so then the question was, will we be able to hold on to Tavion Wallace? But luckily we were able to hold on to his commitment. He wanted to play for T Will, which is fantastic. If you saw, there's a video I shared out there of his commitment where initially he comes out, puts a Florida hat on, pulls his jacket off, has a Florida hoodie sweatshirt on, then throws the hat off, pulls the sweatshirt on. Underneath that was Razorback gear, and he puts the Razorback hat on. So I think all along he had intentions of staying committed to Arkansas, but it's a fun little thing you see recruits do from time to time, is kind of psych you out a little bit. But I think that was the biggest win of the day for sure, is keeping Tavion Wallace, and having him a guy that I think can come in and probably compete right away. You pair him up alongside an experienced guy like Xavier Sorey to help him learn and kind of adjust to the college game. This could be an interesting linebacker room next year.
Yeah, especially if Brad Spence stays. Yeah, it'll be a really, really nice linebacker room. Now, yeah, I can tell you what, he's gonna have to start paying my medical bills or something, or my insurance bills, because my heart can't take that, man. Don't be doing that to me. I tweeted out right after it. I was like, yeah, that didn't affect me physically at all. Yeah, so, but I mean, still, it's fun, especially trolling an SEC program too. Yeah, you can give them as much grief as you want. Just as long as you don't, you can give me a little grief. Just don't do it all. Don't make it long lasting is what I'm going to ask. But still, yeah, great get. He was a massive get whenever they got the commitment first. It was it was like monumental in college sports. Everyone was like, whoa, how did Arkansas get that guy over Florida State or Florida or Georgia or whoever was up for him, It's because he's going to be a good player. You can go on to 24/7 Sports right now and you'll see he's rated 92. I don't know what the composite is for him, but he was rated up to like a 95, on the composite. And so he's been rated up high. He just dropped since then. And you know how it is about 24/7 Sports. It feels like they drop whenever they go to teams that aren't, necessarily the team. And I'm not saying anything's bad about 247. It's just, human bias is what it is. And I don't fault them for it.
Or quote
but you got
unquote,
to
it's
take
like you said, the Arkansas effect of you may be a 4-star, but you commit to Arkansas. Oh, now you're a 3-star.
Yeah. And I kind of want to make that point a little later about another one, but I'm going to save that. But still, he's going to be good. And he, like you said, he could start as a freshman. Maybe not start, but he could play a lot as a freshman.
Contribute.
Yeah, he can contribute a lot, especially if they start, like this season, we went to a 3-2-6. Maybe they'll go to like a 3-4. Got to do math. 4, yeah, 3-4-4. Yeah, this is why I don't do anything with math for my job. So, we could do. He could be in that rotation there too. He could start like that. He could be the third guy up. But no, that was a big get, and he kind of made a statement with it, like he is all hog, So I'm glad about that. I'm super happy.
Yeah, 100%. Especially that he was the icing on the cake for this Arkansas recruiting class. Being the top guy that Arkansas was able to sign. Number 2 guy on Arkansas's recruiting class is a guy that nobody really expected. There wasn't anything really mentioned about him until today. It was a very last minute thing. Arkansas signed a 4-star quarterback, a guy out of California, Long Beach, flipped him from UCLA. The name sounds very familiar, and it's because he is his younger brother, Madden Iamaleava. So, better get used to figuring out that name really fast. We talked about it during the Tennessee matchup. Well, now we have one at Arkansas. His younger brother, 6'2", 200, coming in from Long Beach. Didn't see a lot of playing time this year as he initially tried to transfer to a different school. and got denied. So not a lot of playing time there for him this year, but his junior season stats were pretty good. Over 3,000 yards passing, 43 touchdowns, I believe, 63% completion percentage. So he is a guy that the talent's there. You see it with his older brother. And I'm sure his path to, as far as training and all the things like that, are, if not identical, the same. So that was a big surprise. And, along with him, they talked to his dad about it and said, they really liked UCLA. Family was out there. Yeah, wanted to get him to play in the Pro Bowl, or not Pro Bowl, Rose Bowl. But you get Jace Brown, 6'4", 200 tight end, wide receiver type player that plays both positions. That was a package deal. Both those guys, they said wherever he was going to go, the other was going to go. Those two guys are close high school teammates. And so we flipped him as well. So, another guy that could potentially see some action next year, in a wide receiver needy room here at Arkansas. But, I mean, your thoughts on, that's the surprise commit of Madden Iamaleava.
Oh, yeah, no, that, again, out of left field. Had no idea. I'll tell you, to be honest, I didn't even know that Nico had a brother. I think I texted you that earlier. And you're right about the about him not playing a lot last year and all the eligibility stuff. Now, here's the thing. This is you'll go on to all these recruiting websites and you'll see that he's a lower 4-star prospect on most sites, right? When he was denied eligibility and when he tried to transfer to Polytech, I think that's what it was.
I think, Long Beach Poly.
All of his ratings, like almost across the board, started to sink, especially on 247. And I'm not sure about on 3. I don't think they have a history of it. But that's one of those things, like I was talking about with Wallace. They see him not playing this year. Those other guys, it's not really a team bias or anything like that, but they're focusing on the people who are actually playing. And since Madden wasn't playing, he kind of dropped, and all these ratings are based on what everyone else is doing in the class too. So you got to remember that. If he would have played, I mean, he could have been like a borderline 5-star prospect, right? When he started to transfer, or when he retransferred, he was like a 95 on 247. And if you look at rivals right now, he's the number 6 quarterback in the country. So this is big time. Now, there is another quarterback that we've signed, Grayson Wilson. And you sent the video over. It was a complete surprise to him too, it looks like. So I don't know how that's going to play out with him. Maybe it'll just be a 3-way battle for QB2 next year. Heck, let's put all 4 of them in a battle and let's see who comes out at the other end. And if it's Madden Iamaleava, or if it's KJ Jackson, or if it's Green, who knows? We'll take it, because they're going to have a lot of talent in the quarterback room.
I was about to say that was my next point I was going to lead into. Yeah, Madden was not the only quarterback Arkansas signed today. The main quarterback that had been, committed, and, the guy in the class for Arkansas was Grayson Wilson out of Conway. He is a guy, like I say, like you mentioned that video I sent you, they kind of asked him his thoughts on that signing, and he is like, I was a little bit surprised. He said essentially, he was brutally honest, said, I was told they weren't going to. But at the end of that video, he also says, I'm going to work hard, and he said the goal is to get the best player in the country or on the team as your starter. And so, he's just going to have to work hard. So hopefully maybe he keeps that mentality, stays with Arkansas. And like you said, maybe it's a battle, because you got to think about the guys here too. Got Taylor Green, which, like we said at the beginning, is automatically, you're assuming he's going to be back with Bobby Petrino running it back for another year. You lost Malachi Singleton to the portal, which seems to make more sense now that you've got Madden signed. Don't know if that was kind of they were like, okay, well, we think we're probably going to get this guy. So if he leaves, it's not going to be as big of a deal as if we didn't. You have KJ Jackson, a guy that, was a true freshman last year that has a lot of talent, that also could be set up to be, a quarterback of the future for Arkansas if he stays and learns Bobby Petrino's system and, things work out, perfect like it always does for Arkansas. And now Grayson Wilson and Madden. So, you've got, at least a three-way battle there for potentially quarterback 2 next year. And like you said, Austin, who knows, maybe even quarterback 1 if one of these guys comes in here and just really grasps his system and just, performs well and blows the heck out of, spring ball and summer ball. You never know.
I'm muted for a cough, so
I was about to say you were muted there.
Yeah. Just imagine whenever Arkansas goes to Tennessee and like Imaliava is somehow, the starting quarterback or number 2 and Taylor Green gets hurt or KG Jackson gets hurt. Bro, that's a huge storyline, like brother against brother and, all kinds of stuff like that, especially after Arkansas beat them last year. That's awesome. And you know what my hope is? I hope, because I like Nico too. Like he's probably one of my favorite quarterbacks outside of Arkansas. And I would like for them both to be really good. Heck, we could have like a Peyton Manning, Eli Manning thing going on here. Who knows? But that's just really cool. Especially stealing him from pretty much his hometown, right? Yeah, that's big. So that's making me feel better about the NIL situation. But I'll feel much better after we get a lot of receivers and some more offensive linemen in here.
I agree 100% there. Yeah, like you said, it could be an interesting matchup next season as we head to Knoxville. You never know what it's going to look like, but yeah, to have, brother against brother could be a storyline. I saw it was tweeted today. They said, how many times do you think they'll mention that during the broadcast next year? And fair enough. But at the end of the day, like his dad said also in that article, he wanted to play in the SEC. Arkansas and Bobby Petrino came calling and gave him a chance. He said they know, how good of a play caller and developer that Bobby Petrino is. And it just made a lot of sense for them to make that switch and flip to Arkansas last minute. So that'll be interesting to see how that quarterback room develops. Everybody was kind of a little bit nervous going into next year before today with Malachi leaving. That kind of left you Taylor, and then, you had a couple of young guys going to be behind him with KJ Jackson and Grayson Wilson. KJ Jackson, was here this year, so he's got a grasp somewhat of the Petrino offense. So I feel like that might give him a little bit of a leg up as far as the QB2 battle. But I wouldn't rule any of these guys out just because all these guys are going to come in and compete and, want to win that starting job or that backup job. And, going into the offseason, it's clearly Taylor's to lose, but you never know. So, but like you said, the big question is, and I'll feel much better when we have some receivers for him to throw to. And we signed a few guys today that I think, could be big contributors for next season. Another surprise guy that Arkansas grabbed today was Ja'Caden Ferguson, guy from Missouri City, Texas, 6'2", 175, 4-star type guy that could come in and contribute right away as well.
Yeah. And here's one that it wasn't a surprise or anything, but Scott Starsyke, I think that's what his name.
Yeah,
the kicker, number 1 kicker in the 2025 class. Hello, I mean, what have we been won?
A needy position. There you go. I mean, I think
we lost the number 2 kicker, and now we got the number 1 kicker. So I'm okay with that.
That's where I was going to go. It seemed like the sky was falling whenever, Evan Knoll decommitted and committed to Arkansas. Everybody was like, what are we doing here? This is a position that we need immensely. So why would you let a guy get away? And then we turn right around and, Starzik decommits from Iowa, and then you turn around and, you sign him, and he's the number, like you said, the number one kicker in this class. Can he play in the bowl game?
Yeah, I mean, hey,
And roll early.
If he signed that thing, he can roll early, right? So why can't he just hop on the bus and go to Birmingham or Memphis or wherever we're going? Heck yeah, no. That would be nice.
Yeah, a couple other.
I mean,
go ahead.
The guy that they lost, what's his name? Noel.
Evan Noel.
His last name. Yeah, Evan Noel. Yeah, that dude was good too, right? So whenever he left, I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? And maybe that was like, hey, we got a better kicker. We're pushing you out. Who knows?
I was about to say, who knows what goes on behind the scenes there?
Yeah. But that's I mean, we're talking about implications of this class. I mean, if you from the surface, it's not very flashy, but for what Arkansas needs, there's a lot of pieces here that are very important.
I agree 100% there, because you look at it, Arkansas is going to fill some holes with this class. I mean, we were talking about wide receiver, a couple more guys. We talked about Jace Brown that's coming with Madden. Another guy, Antonio Jordan. He has the chance, I think. He comes from, lo and behold, Warren, Arkansas. If you know anything about that, that's wide receiver capital of Arkansas. The number of talented guys that have come out there, not as highly rated as, some other guys maybe, but, he comes out with great size, has the chance to be a great target for Taylor next season. 6'6", 230, great catch radius, with that size. So he's a guy to look out for as well, that could come in and potentially contribute right away as well.
Yeah, and I remember whenever he committed, Jordan didn't go to any of those I forgot what they're called. What's the big company that does them? But the football camps that everybody does, he didn't do any of that.
7-on-7 type stuff.
The 7-on-7s and stuff like that. So that's where it feels like a pay to play thing, which is makes me feel gross about the whole high school recruiting stuff. But still, I mean, from what everyone says, and you can't really, and from some of his highlights you see on YouTube and whatnot, the kid is good. I don't know about coming in here and making a difference in next year, but he's got the size of like Traylon Burke. He's actually a couple. He's 2 inches taller than Traylon Burks. So he's got that size, and you know what? If he puts on another 20 pounds, he could really transition into like a tight end, be like a Trey Knox type of guy.
Yeah.
So he's got there's some flexibility right there with him. And like you said, he's going to bring that size that we're going to be missing at receiver next year.
Yeah, 100%. And I kind of staying on the offensive side of the ball, you look at it too. You're probably losing Jaquindon Jackson this year, and switching over to running back. He's probably going to be a guy that's going to be gone. I mean, I think he technically has a 6th year, but I would be willing to bet that he probably will not be using that 6th year. And then you have Rodney Hill, who's already said he's coming back. So a guy that's a redshirt sophomore. You saw some different times this year that he had some great plays, had some good plays against Missouri this past weekend. Emmanuel Crawford, a running back, redshirt freshman, entered the transfer portal. So right now, the rest of your running back room, you've got Jaquindon Jackson that's probably left. Rashad Dominion, I would think, would come back and have the chance to be more of a lead back role along with Braylon Russell. Braylon Russell is a guy that I think, we've talked about it all season, is, he showed flashes, another off season. You keep him here. Don't let him enter the portal. And he has a chance to be your lead back next year. He has all the physical tools to be that guy, that next guy for Arkansas, especially being an in-state kid that wanted to play for Arkansas. I think you got to do whatever you got to do to keep him here. I mean, if anything other than, you got to think he knows he's going to be in the role or get a shot for a lead back opportunity with just, Jaquindon gone. You're going to go out and probably sign a back or two from the portal. You've got a couple of guys from this signing class. Cameron Settles from Little Rock Parkview Magnet, coming in 5'10", 195. And then a guy I think he's going to sign tomorrow, but that's committed, Markeelan Batten out of Atlanta, Texas, 5'10", 180. But, I mean, Braylon is just one heck of a dude as far as his athletic ability, and I don't think he's a guy that you let walk easily.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can. I mean, you still have like Juju Pope, who's a true freshman this year, and he'll be a redshirt freshman next year. 6 foot 213, but you don't have a guy that really is that bruising type of guy anymore, especially with most likely Jackson leaving. Which I thought he was out of eligibility, but I don't know if he has a COVID year he can use, or if he, I'm not sure. He's a redshirt senior, so who knows? But yeah, there's not any of those big guys left, and a lot of these guys are walk-ons too. So if you can't keep Braylon, I mean, that's another one you're gonna have to go to the portal and find a big guy who can come in here. And the thing is, we can just say that, go to the portal, find a new running back, but people that size with that kind of athleticism, they're hard to find, man. Mm-hmm. That's why it's hard to get elite defensive linemen. It's because they're massive human beings and they're incredibly athletic, and they're not a dime a dozen. I mean, they're hard to find, especially really, really good ones. So they're high commodity, high price commodity, and it's not gonna be as easy as what we think to find a Braylon Russell type of guy. So yeah, they need to do whatever they can to keep him. And with the whole not playing the last couple games, and then the not, that tweet that was tweeted and then deleted. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's a weird situation. I don't know what to think of it. So we'll see.
That's where I was gonna go. Is like, they announced, signing day was today. Back on Monday, they announced, that Pittman was gonna be retained. He's coming back another year. And then, but you still had the question mark of, Petrino was potentially still had an opportunity at Charlotte. But then, the next day took his name out of the hat for that. But, with everybody, you have a lot of fans that aren't happy with Sam coming back, and rightfully so. I mean, I'm not going to specifically go out there and call for a guy's job, but I mean, the results of this season and how some of the games went had some question marks to me. But, Hunter brings him back. You have some fans that aren't happy about that. But if you lose a guy like Braylon Russell, an in-state kid that's extremely talented, has the chance to be, a really talented running back, you let him walk, that's the easiest way to lose what support you have left from the Arkansas fan base. An in-state kid like that's extremely talented that you managed to keep home from last year's class. I mean, he was a 4-star out of last year's class. That's just not a good look.
No, it's not. And I mean, it's going to be hard to keep this fan base interested anyway, because about the only thing that kept them interested this year was Bobby Petrino, right? And that card's been played. So they need to find something to get people excited, or they're going to lose the fan base pretty quick. And one of the things that could really, really send it over the edge is losing Braylon Russell. Not only is, like you said, not only is he an Arkansas guy, but he's a very, very, very good kid from Arkansas. And that's been a problem for Sam Pittman and the staff. And I don't know why, because, most people you'll see on Twitter, they'll be like, well, we need to keep the in-state guys. And, what's his name? The linebacker, the former linebacker that's been talking.
Brooks Ellis.
Brooks Ellis. And, you know, he makes a good point about finding kids that want to come here and developing and whatnot. But I mean, that's a different game, but that's also a different argument from what I'm trying to make. But the thing about keeping a gate around Arkansas, you don't have to keep it for the guys that aren't good. I mean, I don't want to say aren't good, but the ones that aren't elite. Like you had 4 or 5 4-stars in this class, and I think one of them came, and that's Grayson Wilson. You know, and Grayson Wilson is just barely a 4-star, according to most websites.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why can't we keep the elite guys in Arkansas? Right? That's what I want to keep. Those 4-stars, those really high 3-stars. Keep those guys here. And I don't know how we can let them go. Like Courtney Crutchfield. Imagine if we had Courtney Crutchfield right now, this whole wide receiver talk, would be completely different. I wouldn't be nearly as worried as I am without, with Courtney Crutchfield here. But no, he's up there with the nerd Drinkowitz and, getting a bag and playing in the snow, in the cold, instead of being down here at home. So I just don't understand why they can't get that part fixed. Right.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, and if you think about it too, as an Arkansas fan watching football, you want to see us have success. That's a big part of it. But I think it's similar to you're seeing some issues as far as viewership with basketball, and I think it can apply to some football too, is you want to see those Arkansas kids too. I mean, you have a guy like Braylon Russell that's from Arkansas. I mean, and not trying to make a comparison here, but it's like almost like, you have, not saying he's going to be the next one, but like a guy like Darren McFadden, a guy from Arkansas and Central Arkansas that came to Arkansas, stayed home when he could have went dang near anywhere else he wanted to, but he chose to stay at Arkansas, and he had an amazing career here. I mean, if you run a guy like Braylon Russell off that has the ability, I'm not saying he's going to be like Darren McFadden, but he has the potential. He has the tools. But if you let him get away, like you said, why can't we retain guys like this? I mean, sure, he might ask for some more money or NIL, whatever it may be. But like it goes back to, I think you got to keep him here. I mean, I don't think that'll sit right with the Arkansas fan base if you weren't necessarily, everybody wasn't necessarily excited that you were coming back, but then now you lose one of the top in-state recruits. I think it's not going to help his cause. I mean, this signing class helps a little bit with some of the surprises here. Thing like that. But at the end of the day, yeah. I mean, points here. I mean, and the Aldridge says no coach has ever kept every elite prospect in state. You're not going to keep them all. That's unrealistic. It doesn't happen in Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Oklahoma, no matter what. And I agree 100%. You're not going to be able to keep everybody. But I think a guy like you already have limited guys on this Arkansas roster, then you want to keep a guy that has the talent like Braylon Russell. Sure, you're going to lose some guys. Like Nisha says here, pretty sure Crutchfield redshirted this year at Missouri. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I looked, there's no stats for him. So, I mean, he's a guy that kind of rode the bench behind. You had Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, guys that, were the main
usually
guys.
talented guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And, if he could have came here, who knows? He might have saw the field as a freshman here at Arkansas and played right away. But like you said, he went to Missouri and got his bag. So it's interesting, shout out to Ty joining us tonight. Fantastic. Glad to have you over here. But yeah, so you're not going to keep every elite recruit, but I think a guy like Braylon Russell, where, you're losing a DeQuinton Jackson, a guy that you're going to need somebody to step up. You saw flashes the past few years of Rashad Dominion, but I don't know if he can be, your every down guy. There's a potential if he can stay healthy, but not trying to get off too much of a tangent on specifically Braylon Russell, but he's a guy that I think you got to try to keep at the end of the day. That's my point there.
And here's my counter to Anthony, which, I mean, that's a great point. You can't do that. Not every year. And, most years you can't do that. I completely agree. But right now, Arkansas, well, this year they kind of went down, but at one point, Marion Robinson was a 4-star guy. And at one point, Marcus Wimberly was a 4-star guy. So out of the top 6 Arkansas recruits,
You
Arkansas
also
got 2 of them.
can't forget about Carius Kern too.
Yeah, Carius Kern, top guy, a 94 rated guy. He left. Now let's look at last year real quick. Hang on. I don't think last year was super bad.
Good point too here. Anthony says if Crutchfield wants to come home and play sooner, he can. That now that Signees leaving, that's the potential too. If he wants to transfer back home, he sees the opportunity to come home and play in front of his family, and knowing he's going to, get a start.
If he wanted to go there and get his bag for the first year and then come back home, I'll gladly accept him home. I don't care. So okay, so the last 2 years, right, out of the top 12, the top 6 in each year, Arkansas has got 2 of those guys. So Walker White, Courtney Crutchfield, Joseph McVeigh went to Vandy. Drake Lindsay, he went to Montana. Is that Minnesota? Yeah. And then so it's a pattern. Not keeping the top guys. That's 2 years in a row where you had the top 2 guys leave and go to another school.
So it's like you're already getting limited of that elite talent as is.
Right.
So it's like you want to keep what little you do get.
Right. So like last year, it was actually a very good year. 5 guys were rated 4 stars. Braylon Russell was the worst, quote unquote, of the 4 stars. And you see how he is, right? The guy's playing for his home team who, we don't know how much, stock he actually puts into playing for the Hawgs, but you get these guys who are homegrown and who are very good. It's gonna, it's gonna make a difference out on the field. Like, what if they had been able to keep Walker White? At quarterback, we'd be talking about a different thing too. We might not have had to take 2 quarterbacks this year. So that's I don't know. It's just one of those things that they haven't been very good at, and I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, especially you think, a guy like Sam Pittman would be one of those guys, he really loves the state of Arkansas. I mean, that's what he says. And, you get these guys in, and I don't know if it's just roster management, if you will, or, not giving guys more opportunities. There's a number of things you could dive down and say why this guy or that guy left or didn't come here, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I think it boils down to is like that elite talent from Arkansas that you do manage to get to come here. You want to keep it. And, at the end of the day, I just hope Braylon Russell ends up is wearing a Razorback uniform next season.
Yeah, me too. And then, if not, next guy up, try to find someone in the portal. It's just the way it is in college football right now. And it's going to be a roller coaster all year long, right? Pretty much you'll have a lull in the middle of the summer baseball season, and then, a month or so in between baseball and fall camp. But right now, football is a year-round sport, basically, especially for journalists and people who are trying to cover it. It's all the time. Every day you got to keep your eyes and ears open for stuff like that. So,
yeah. As we keep continuing to talk about this signing class, we'll jump to the defensive side of the ball. We already talked about Taven Loss, the big name there. It's already been announced you've got Xavier Sorey, Cam Ball coming back. That's 2 big pieces that, are going to be big time for this defense next year, especially as far as leadership goes. Arkansas got a couple of pretty good defensive linemen in this year's class too. The highest rated one, Kevin Otis, coming from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, 6'2", 295. And then you've got Reginald Vaughn coming out of Flowood, Mississippi, out of Hartfield Academy, 6'2", 260. So you've got a few guys coming in there. Caleb Bell out of Alpharetta, Georgia, 6'3", 270. You got an edge rusher in Keandre Johnson out of Terrell, Texas, 6'3", 230. Another edge rusher in Trent Sellers out of Mobile, Alabama. So going into Alabama and grabbing a kid, 6'6", 235. Another linebacker, Jaden Shelton, 6 foot, 200 out of Dallas, Texas. You signed a couple guys on the back end. Taj Overton from Mobile, 6'2", 190 safety. Nigel Pringle, that's probably going to come in and play somewhere in your secondary out of Houston, Texas, 6'2", 178. So you got a few different guys on the defensive side of the ball that come in, and like you said, not all of them are going to be able to make a difference right away. If I had to bet, I'd say probably Tavion Wallace is your best bet to actually come in and contribute heavily as a freshman. You might see some of these other guys in the secondary because I think we're going to be needy in the secondary. We're losing some guys there probably to eligibility. You got to hope Jalen Braxton says he's going to come back after, playing 2 games for Arkansas this year before, having all those injury issues. Guys that, probably are out of eligibility or entering the transfer portal out of eligibility, just looking here. Keon Stewart, Danico Slaughter, Jaden Johnson, Hudson Clark, Anthony Switzer, all those guys out of eligibility. Nobody's necessarily entered the portal from the backside yet. Jalen Braxton's the guy you want back. A talented kid like Selmer Bridges, didn't see a ton of him this year. You think he might be able to contribute next year. You'll probably go out and get a couple guys from the portal like you always do. Miguel Mitchell, transfer from Florida. We saw him play later in the season. Once he got eligible for whatever reason that was, he had some flashes towards the end of the season. Jaheim Singletary, he's a guy that's a toss-up. Hasn't really turned into what was expected coming out of Georgia, transferring over from Georgia. But you've got a lot of young guys in that secondary that could step up, but you definitely will go out and get a couple guys in the portal as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would be watching. I don't know anything, right? But I'm just thinking about situations. I'd probably be watching Selman Bridges and Singletary to see whether or not they jump in the portal and try to go somewhere else. Selman, I mean, really, I feel like he's the next guy up, right? I don't think there's much debate that he's going to be probably the starter next year. Singletary, like you said, former 5-star guy from Georgia, and he doesn't look the part out there, and maybe if he gained a little bit of weight and he could play like, and a little bit of muscle, and he could play nickel maybe, or he could play safety, but I don't know if corner is going to be his position, so that's something to look for. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not extremely worried about the secondary. Like I said, I've been harping on it all night. It's the offensive line and receivers are who I'm really worried about. Secondary, I feel like they'll find some guys that can fill in quite nice. But yeah, I would definitely look at Metcalf. Yes. I'm sorry, Neely. Is that how you say your name?
We're going to get there. That's who I was going to bring up next. I was going to say, you can't forget about those Metcalf boys. Those guys, they have really shined this year. And I want to see them stay at Arkansas. I want to see them, have a duo like two brothers in that secondary would be insane. So, yeah, Neely, they have the chance to continue to show off next year, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, trust me, I ain't forgetting about them. I'm telling you that. But you know what would be cool if I, have one as a safety and then one as a nickel, because they're both, from what I remember seeing, both of them are pretty hard hitting guys, and you want somebody like that at those two positions. So no, yeah, both starting, safety, nickel, that'd be cool. But yeah, I ain't forgetting about them. I promise you.
Yeah. So yeah, look at it, and the secondary is going to be interesting. Take a step forward. Everybody's going to take a step forward in the offseason. T Will being back, that's going to be big at the development of this defense. I think other than a few games this year where, we struggled a little bit, but you've seen continuous improvement in what he's been able to do, from year 1 to year 2 this year, and to that next step next year. I mean, he's getting his guys in there that he likes. A linebacker coach by trade. That's what he played, what he coached before he came here. But the way he's building this defense, what he's able to do, getting Landon Jackson to come back this year after last year. I think he could gear up to have this defense really good next year, and you're set up for, to have some key guys in each level of that defense. Because if you look at it, Campbell kind of anchoring down your veteran guy that's coming back on that D line, Xavier Story coming back in the linebacking room, and then you got Tavian Wallace jumping in, and then of course, in the secondary you have your Metcalf boys that are coming back. That's going to help anchor that down, and then what other guys are going to come back? Jalen Braxton, I would assume he's back. Not 100% sure on that. It's like you said, it's hard to gauge because not every single guy on the roster is going to come out and say, "Oh, I'm back again next year." You're going to have some guys that will specifically come out and say that, but you're going to have guys that won't. And so it's just a wait and see game, essentially. I believe the portal opens up on Monday. Is that correct? Officially, you already have these guys declaring now, but I think it opens officially on Monday.
Yeah, it's pretty close. All the sites are already putting them on there. But let's talk about the D line for a second, because I think that's going to be really interesting. And I think there's a lot of people who think we'll have some trouble, there. But with who they have right now, I think they probably are pretty well set. Maybe one or two guys, especially on the interior, that because they still got Ian Giffard. He's coming back, and that's a big old dude, man.
Quincy Rhodes,
6'5". Quincy Rhodes showed some flashes this year, and it was like really went under the radar. And I feel like he could be a Landon Jackson type of guy in the future. I mean, they're basically the same size. I would love to see him come out and pretty much do what Landon Jackson did. I'm more worried about. Go ahead. I'm more worried about the guys on the inside because Eric Gregory finally, running out of eligibility. That guy, who are we talking about? The Allen, what's his name from Oklahoma State?
Oh, Allen
quarterback. Yeah, before the show started. And, he's coming back for an 8th year, which is insane. Well, Eric Gregory's another one that's been here forever. And unfortunately, he's run out of eligibility, and he's probably one of the most underrated dudes on that defensive line, and he's not going to be back. So I'm more worried about who's going to be that number 2 guy next to Campbell.
Yeah. And then you can't forget about the young guys. You've got Kavion Henderson, Charlie Collins that came in last year. Both D linemen. They play more of an edge rusher type position, but you got JJ Hollingsworth, Ian Gefford, you already mentioned Quincy Rhodes, Danny Seeley, you didn't see this year. That's a junior that transferred in from BYU last year. Caleb James, redshirt freshman. So you've got guys that are going to be on this roster, but then you brought in, like we ran through some of those guys, Kevin Otis, Reginald Vaughn, that are going to come in and maybe contribute a little bit. And then, of course, it's. I think it stands to say this for every position. You're probably going to go out and get a couple portal guys, 1 or 2, depending on who you have coming back and things like that. But you're going to go ahead and get a couple, maybe a veteran guy or 2 to replace. Like you said, you're losing Landon Jackson. He's not an easy guy to replace. You're going to lose, like you said, Eric Gregory. After running out of that eligibility as well.
Nico Davier, he hasn't entered the portal or anything, but he just had surgery on that on his knee. So it might be, who knows how well he recovers from it, and if he can get back in time for fall camp and be 100% healthy too. So definitely having those edge guys like Kavion Henderson and Charlie Collins, that's going to be big help for this defensive line.
Yeah. Speaking of Landon Jackson, guy we were just talking about, you hate to see him go down in a scary incident in Missouri, but, they said after the game he was released from the hospital. It was in the locker room with the guys, so that's good to hear. But he just posted his essentially farewell thank you message to Razorbacks. He is a guy that didn't have to come back after last year. And I'll just read this really quickly. He said, "Thank you, Razorbacks. First, I'd like to thank God, as without him, none of this is possible. Second, I would like to thank my family, friends, and, of course, my wife, for they have been motivated me beyond measure. I would also like to thank my coaches, teammates for molding me into the player and man I am today. Lastly, I thank all Razorback fans for taking me in and treating me like family. Attending Arkansas is one of the best decisions I've ever made. I've grown off the field just as much as I've developed on it. I've had the opportunity to play for some of the best coaches anybody could ask for. After talking with my family, I'm excited to announce that I'll be fulfilling my lifelong dream and entering the 2025 NFL draft. I think that was to come expected. And I think it may be safe to say, I don't know 100%, but he may not play during the bowl game.
Yeah, I don't think he will.
I think that's maybe the same case for Andrew Armstrong as well.
Yeah, Andrew Hutchinson, he posted a quote tweet of his announcement or, farewell. And he was like, he doesn't say it here, but it's, pretty much he's not going to be playing. So I don't expect either one of them to play, especially with Landon Jackson, with how it ended with him at Missouri. Just human nature, that's going to freak you out. And with so much on the line, you're not going to give it up like that, with one more game. So no, I completely understand why he would forego this. But cool thing is, we'll get to see a lot of Quincy Rhodes, and since the bowl games don't count towards your 4 games, for true freshmen, we'll probably see a lot of Cavion Henderson and a lot of Charlie Collins too, and we'll probably get a lot of Junkosh too, because he ran out of eligibility too, I believe, right?
Yes, I believe
He's
is another guy as well. Yeah.
So we'll see those guys most likely on the edge against whoever they play in the bowl game.
Agreed. So yeah, overall, I think if you had to look at it, you mentioned the offensive line as we kind of finish up talking about this signing class. Arkansas signs a few offensive linemen today. Highest rated one for Arkansas is going to be Lionel Prudhomme out of Shreveport, Louisiana, 6'3", 295. You also have offensive tackle Cash Courtney out of Carthage, Texas. A guy that I think he majority played center, so a guy that can come in and maybe be your future center. 6'4", 285. You got Blake Cherry out of Owasso, Oklahoma, 6'5", 295 as a tackle. So and then you have you got one JUCO guy that's coming in. I believe he was ranked the number 1 overall JUCO offensive lineman, Bubba Craig out of Hutchinson Community College in Kansas, 6'8", 320. He is a massive man that is going to come in. Almost reminds me of I know he's still taller than Bubba is, but he gives me almost Dan Skipper type vibes with his size. 6'8", 320. That's a massive man that's going to be on that offensive line next season.
You know who? Hang on, I forgot his name. He reminds me of the right tackle we had, not last year, like in 2021. Shoot, what was his name? Long hair. How did I forget it?
And then what you're finding that real quick. The other guy that is questionable, they're talking like a potential flip. You have Connor Howes from Kissimmee, Florida, offensive tackle, 6'5", 295. They're talking like he might potentially flip to Ole Miss. There hasn't been anything necessarily out yet, but I'm sure that Arkansas coaching staff is working hard to try and keep him signed on and being a key piece of this recruiting class for the future. Are you thinking Brady Latham? Is he a guy you're thinking of? No.
And I'll find it. I can't believe I forgot his name. Dalton Wagner. Jeez.
Yeah, Wagner. Okay, yeah.
He was 6'9", 319. How did I forget his name? Yeah, Dalton. That's. I feel like that's a better comp.
Yeah, definitely could be an anchor on that offensive line, especially
dude.
with the struggles we had this year, I think he's a guy that could probably come in and compete for a starting job right away. You're potentially losing Josh Braun. Pittman said in a press conference last week that Josh Braun's a guy out of that senior class that he could see coming back, and honestly, a guy that he would want to try to get back if possible. I know he did participate in senior day festivities, but he's a guy that could come back. Other than that, spots that could be open on the offensive line as far as returners. Assuming we know Fernando Carmona is coming back. He officially announced that today. I think Addison Nichols is probably back. Patrick Kudus is probably back. They talked about redshirting him. I think they will redshirt him. Like you said, he'll probably get to play in that bowl game since that doesn't count. The only other few positions or guys that might be questionable that could get beat out is you got to think maybe Keyshawn Blackstock didn't have the greatest season overall. Showed some flashes, but on the flip side, that showed several times where he struggled. You got Imarion Harris is another guy that could potentially come back. You're losing Joe Moore that transferred in last year from, I believe, Syracuse. Other than that, you've got guys that will be back. You want this. You want as much depth as possible, but also you're losing Tykees Crawford as well due to eligibility. You got Kobe Branham that's coming back, or that could come back, that could potentially fight for a spot next year, whether it be second string or whatever. Maybe he was a true freshman this year.
Zuri Madison too.
He was the guy that
didn't
was
do a low
injured.
lot.
Well, he was injured this year. I think they said he tore his ACL right before season.
Yeah. I don't think he did it at football practice either.
I think they said it was a scooter accident, honestly. Of all things.
Those scooters on campus, I'm telling you, I'll get you. But yeah, they're gonna have to get a couple guys. I think maybe the dude that's committed today or signed today, he could definitely, Bubba Craig, he could possibly fill that right tackle spot, right? Mm-hmm. If he can do what the ratings show, then that'll be a good thing, because I don't think Amarian Harris is really a right tackle type of guy. He seems like more of an inside type player, like Patrick Kudus and Josh Braun. Both of those guys didn't really work out on the edge. They felt a little bit better on the inside. And you know what? Andrew Carmona, he did okay this year. But he also seems like a guy who would be better at more like a right tackle or something like that, because I don't think he was bad in the pass rush. He just wasn't, he's not super long, and he's not, he doesn't have that left tackle build that you see left tackles have. So I don't know. They're going to have to do a lot of work on it, I feel.
Yeah, another guy I want to throw out there that we talked about before jumping on here, a guy transferring from Oregon, offensive tackle Jaquan McRoy. He is entering the transfer portal after spending a year at Oregon, not playing, redshirting essentially. 6'8", 365, and will have 4 years of eligibility. A guy that Arkansas was pushing hard last year to try and sign, and he ultimately chose Oregon over Arkansas. I believe they said his mom actually wanted him to go to Arkansas anyway. So, maybe he's a guy that can, we get a shot on round 2. Pittman go out and, get this guy, bring him in to compete as well. You have Bubba Craig. You're getting back to a, very stout offensive line like you've seen Pittman have in the past. Like you think about the offensive lines at Georgia, the offensive line he had back when he was here previously under Bielema, that was, one of the largest in college football. If you can get a guy like, Jaquan McRoy, and then you have Bubba Craig. That's two big guys that could help anchor your offensive line next season.
Yeah, and we've got to let the portal, play out a little bit. But I really feel like they still need to go. They need to get a guy who is proven as well. You know what I'm saying? Last year we thought that was more like Carmona, and he was a good leader and everything. But I feel like we need to get someone that is that is proven against Power 5 or Power 4 teams. You know what I'm saying? Someone who can play against the type of talent that we play. That's where they need to go and they need to search. I know we're like low on receivers, but I feel like it doesn't matter who we get. Bobby Trudeau's going to figure out how to get them the ball, right? I want somebody who can protect Taylor Green or, KJ Jackson, whoever is the quarterback next year. That's who I want them to spend like money on. I want them to drop a bag on a good offensive lineman. So that's just me. I think that's probably the best way to go, but everybody's got their opinion.
I was about to say, I mean, that's true. That's what you're going to have happen. Different guys are going to, or they're going to see their priorities a little bit differently. Another guy that I saw earlier today, if I can find the name really quickly, that entered that transfer portal that could be a potential guy that Arkansas could go after, as far as thinking about the offensive line, is a guy that is very familiar with Eric Mateos, a guy that jumped in the portal from Baylor. If I can find that name really quickly. I am not seeing it, but there's a lineman that has 35 starts out of Baylor that, Eric Mateos, that's where he came from, can maybe call up and potentially say, hey, we could use your help over here at Arkansas. So
Alvin Ebel-Sealy?
Yes.
Is that who you're talking about?
I believe so.
Yeah, he's right now the highest ranked 3-star guy. No, this is the high school recruiting. So I don't know what he's going to be in the transfer portal, but he was 89 out of high school. But right now he's the top guy out of that category. Because if you look on the transfer portal for 247 Sports, they'll give a rating, and if they haven't done the transfer evaluation yet, they'll just give the old high school one, and they kind of have them divided when you look at it. So he's the highest 3-star technically out of that group of players. But who knows? He might pop into that 4-star category too. So we'll have to see. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm talking about. Someone who's been there, who has had those type of starts, and that's a great observation. That'd be a good get, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, guys, like you said, guys that have had that experience at the Power 4 level, has some starts under his belt, a guy that you can expect to come in and, compete or push the existing starters to either play to that next level and keep their job, or just come show you that they're going to flat out win the job. So that's the things to look at there. So, overall, I think, at the end of the day, could this signing class have been better? Yes. Composite right now, overall, 28. So you're sitting outside the top 25, which on a good day, you'd be like, okay, that's great, but not when, majority of the SEC is in the top 25. That's where it's tough. I mean, at the end of the day, keeping Tavian Wallace is big. Getting the flip from Madden's big. So you got some surprises that you didn't necessarily expect, which is going to be beneficial. But you're still going to have to work pretty hard in the portal to go out and get some guys to help complete and fill out this roster with. I mean, and it's still, we got a long time to go. I mean, there's probably going to be another handful of Arkansas guys that's going to enter the portal. I mean, that's just like you said earlier in the show, that's the nature of the game now with college football is guys either want to play more or want to go somewhere and get more money. And that's the name of the game. So, who else enters the portal for Arkansas? We don't know yet. We'll keep you updated as we get that information. Like I said, with the latest one being Isaiah Satania right before we jumped on here. Other than that, I mean, any quick thoughts for you from signing day, anything that we maybe didn't talk about, or your just overall thoughts on this signing class?
Nothing. I don't think I got anything more to add about the signing class. I really just think it was one of those that, yeah, it wasn't great. But they got a lot of guys who, what do you call it? They got a lot of guys who
Have potential.
Not necessarily just potential, but that fit where we need them to fit. I don't think it's enough. That's why we're gonna have to go to the portal, obviously. But in key positions where Arkansas might be lacking in the younger talent, or like especially kicker, right? They got the pieces in the places they really need that recruiting from. So that's a plus. But otherwise, it's a little bit underwhelming class. But we'll see. You can't do a whole lot after a 4-8 season. So
yeah, and then like Pigpen's point earlier, if we can go out there and win the bowl game, that'll definitely help as well. Get that 7th win of the season, and then, at this point with it, the staff and the board and Yurchek kind of doubling down that Pittman's going to be back. The best thing or the best outcome for the situation that Arkansas is in, not saying it's the best outcome overall or best, situation we could be in, but for the situation you're in, being able to retain both your coordinators is huge, to have that continuity with a lot of these players. And, to keep Petrino, I think, is the big one. T-Will is big, but I think Petrino, out of the two of those, was probably the one that Arkansas fans were worried about most, because if he would have left, you would have been on your 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years, which is not great. I think that's some of the problem you saw maybe with KJ last year, was that he had to learn a whole new offensive scheme from Dan Enos compared to what he was running with Kendall Briles, and that might have partly played into some of his struggles. Not going to try to jump into that a lot, but so to have Bobby back, like we said, assuming Taylor Green being able to develop another year under and learn that offense, because as we know, that Petrino offense is a complex offense that will take some time to learn. You're not always going to be able to pick it up quickly, but if you look back to when he was here before, that jump from year 1 to year 2, you notice the difference. More yards, more points per game, things like that. And you've got to take that with a grain of salt, if you will, because we don't have a Ryan Mallett back there behind under taking snaps. That would be nice, but
well, here's the thing: is that he's done that everywhere he's gone. Look at Lamar Jackson. His first year wasn't very good, and then all of a sudden he turns into a Heisman candidate. I'm not saying he's going to turn Taylor Green or KJ Jackson or any of them into that type of player, but he has 2 years under the system. That's usually where it starts to pick up. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So we'll keep an eye out on what guys we go and attack in the portal and try to bring in. Like we said, it'll be you'll probably see, I would say, maybe anywhere between 10 to 15 guys, if not more, out of the portal that you're trying to bring in and fill in. Like you said, you're gonna have to bring in some receivers, maybe a running back, some offensive linemen, some guys on the defensive side of the ball. You're gonna see it scattered out there, but you're probably I'd say you're probably looking at 10 to 15 in the transfer portal that you're gonna try to sign to go along with this recruiting class you just finished up signing today.
Yeah, that's probably that's a pretty good number, I believe. Yeah, we'll see though. Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing about right now, is that you're just gonna have to be patient and wait and see, because it could look like the world is falling right now, or tomorrow, or the next day, and then the day after that, you could be on top of the world again. That's just how it is right now. And if you're a college football fan, that's I don't know. I like the range of emotions, right? So I kind of like it. I know as an Arkansas fan, it sucks sometimes, but as a college football fan, I like the difference in the hypes and the lows and the roller coaster that we're on.
Yeah, 100%. I agree there. We mentioned before, we already established that Pittman's going to be back. It was tweeted out today that from the administration that Pittman did have his surgery successfully yesterday morning. That there's a reason he didn't have any type of press conference today on signing day, but had his surgery yesterday morning. Everything went well. He was moving up and moving around, and I think they said he was in the office part of the day today, so he's already back in the office. That was big for signing day. Not sure if we're going to get a press conference later this week talking about signing day once he's ready, or if we're going to get one at all. And then later this week, we'll find out, what bowl game Arkansas is going to be headed to. It's going to be interesting to see where we're headed. And then we'll probably get some type of presser from Pittman once we figure out where we're going on and who we're playing and, let the bowl game prep get started.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see him one last time, and then follow it through this summer. That I don't know. I like it. This is why I do what I do, and I'm excited for it. So
yeah,
but it's going to be a roller coaster. Let me
100%
emphasize it again. Roller coaster it is.
Exactly. Speaking of excited, we got to jump over. Arkansas basketball gets a big, much-needed road win against Miami last night in the SEC ACC Challenge. Finally getting a win against a Power 4 team, if you will, because you think their previous two losses and Power 4 opponents, they lose to Baylor a little bit earlier in the season, then they lose to Illinois on Thanksgiving, and then now you have Miami. Yes, Miami's not the greatest team in the world. I believe they're 3-4 coming into this game.
Yeah.
And so, they're not, fantastic, but the fact that Arkansas was able to go on the road, get a win, but also in that win, fight back and, not having the lead majority of the game and then being able to fight back into it at the end was big. And I don't think you can you don't win this game if not for one Boogie Flan.
Right. Boogie Flan, and especially Boogie Flan, because he had like the last 7 points of the game, and that's where it really mattered. Arkansas had the lead for like a minute and 42 seconds, I think. And that was the last minute and 42 seconds. And it's because they hit the last 3 of their 4 shots were from 3-point from the 3-point line, and they made all 3 of them, and 2 of them were Boogie. So yeah, that was really the difference in the game, is that they started hitting the 3-pointer in the second half. They were like 50%. And then Johnell Davis, he had like 12 points, and he really took off in that second half.
Yeah, Nelly Davis, seeing him come out, I think this was the game everybody was ready to see him have. 12 points, but 3 of 6 from deep, shooting 50%. That's what everybody's been waiting for. And maybe this is the spark that he needed to kind of get going in what everybody expected him to be like. Your top 3 scorers of this game were all your guards. You had Boogie with 18 points, DJ Wagner with 14 points, and then Nelly Davis with 12 points. And then Big Z chiming in with 11, but a majority of those coming from deep, as he hit 3 for 4 from 3 as well.
Yeah, and if you notice, I mean, we talked about it a little bit after the Illinois loss, that we wanted him to do more with the ball in his hands and take more shots, and that's exactly what he did. So yeah, seeing him gain that confidence, I hope it's just going to be that snowball effect. And it's just going to get him back to the way he was at FAU.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this game, like you said, you trailed a majority of the game, got the lead in the last few minutes. But something I think that surprised a lot of fans, but excited a lot of fans that I saw talking about on Twitter and everything. They're like, we actually have a coach that's going to foul whenever we're up leading in a game. We had that 3-point lead. in those last few minutes, and you saw Coach Cal you had 2 fouls to give, and you had them foul Miami once they inbounded the ball, run a few seconds off foul. That's something you didn't really see under Musselman, and I think it's a thing of relief to see that we will foul and be confident in fouling if we do have the lead.
Yeah, fouling and timeouts. Those are the 2 big ones, man. Whenever someone goes on a run, Calipari's not afraid to call that timeout. And that's really one of the things that irked me about Musselman, is that he wouldn't stop the bleeding ever. And it's like, dude, you can't take those timeouts with you. What are you doing? Use them.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's good to see that, and it's good to see Brazil and Adu get a little bit more action. Adu looked good. Okay, like I'm just gonna say it. He didn't look like Adu at Tennessee, but especially on the offensive end in the pick and roll, I thought he looked pretty good. And he had, for the first 3 minutes, he was the only person to get points for Arkansas. So I'm hoping he starts to get better too after this game.
Yeah, I think this is a progression you're going to start seeing. I mean, like you said, he doesn't blow you away off the stat sheet with what he did last night, but he played 12 minutes, which is a lot more than what he normally has. You saw Big Z play 13 and Brazil play 19, so it's about evenly spread there. And I think what you're seeing is Adu is finally getting into a little bit better game shape and is able. I mean, you could still tell he was a little slower, a little hobbled, still a little bit. But I mean, to see him come out, play 12 minutes, score 4 points, 2 rebounds, like you said on that pick and roll. I mean, if the guards would see him, he was open nearly every time coming off that pick and roll. And the 2 times they were able to catch it, they fed it to him right for a easy little dunk there at the goal. And so you got to think that's only going to get better. The more in shape he gets, the more minutes he sees, as well as, just getting into a rhythm with these guys in game. I mean, you can practice with guys all you want, but until you play with them and build that continuity in game type situations, that's just going to continue to get better. And I think you saw our defense look better too, with, being able to have 3 bigs instead of either just playing with just Big Z and having to have maybe like a Adu Thero step up and have to play in forward type of role. Now you have where you can rotate through Brazil, Jonas Adu, Big Z, and guys aren't going to be as gassed.
Yeah, the thing they gotta work on though, 1 3-point defense, and those switches, in rotating over to help. They're I don't know what it is. Like Adu, this is one of the things that I didn't like about what Adu did. And Brazil also had trouble with it too. I don't know if they're just not communicating whenever they switch guys. But it's getting a little worrisome for me, because I feel like from right now you start building that chemistry. It just doesn't feel like that's necessarily happening on the defensive side. I think Arkansas mainly they're really aggressive on defense, and that's why they've been really good on defense, except for against Illinois. But the reason why Illinois did good is because they passed the ball all the time. You couldn't get anybody to dribble, and you couldn't go in there and pick someone's pocket. But they're going to have to do better communicating on the defensive side, and that especially with the bigs, I feel. So we'll see how that goes. I think Big Z is probably a little bit better with it. But for whatever reason, Brazil and Adu are having a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I think that's going to, you can't keep saying this for long, and I know that's the case, but, with us still being, you're 8 games into the season, I feel like by the time you get to the end of December and getting ready for conference play, that's something that you need to have shored up a little bit, especially for Arkansas's case, because you're going to open conference play with a road trip to Tennessee. So that's not going to be an easy first conference game for you at all. If you look at this week, you've got UTSA Saturday, another game to kind of, come back home, get the job done, do the job at home, get the win. And then you're headed to play on one of the biggest stages in college basketball at Madison Square Garden in New York against Michigan, which as it stands will be, for the people to keep up with and really look into a quad one win, which is you want to be able to get as many of those as possible. And so, against the Michigan team that's, those Power 4 games that we just talked about that Arkansas currently is 1-2 in, you really need to get the win there. You really need to. I said it before in the third game stretch of Illinois, Miami, Michigan. You really need to go 2-1 in those games. Well, we're 1-1. Really need to get that win against Michigan and get a good win or non-conference win in your pocket.
Yeah, especially and then after Michigan, it's only 3 more games until we start SEC play. And who do we go and play? Tennessee, at Tennessee. And I'm telling you, Tennessee's good, right? They destroyed Syracuse last night. So it's going to be a lot of growing and a lot of that chemistry building that they're going to need to do between now and then Tennessee. And that Michigan, if they can pull off the win against Michigan, like you said, it's going to be a huge deal going into that little stretch of non-conference we have left. Speaking of the ACC SEC challenge, SEC is kicking tail right now. Right now they're 11-1. 11-1, and guess who that one SEC loss is?
I was about to say
Kentucky.
You kind of read my mind where you wanted to go with that. I mean, I believe that certain fans that like to be in Arkansas's mentions, ever since the off season.
Yeah,
I think that team wears blue. So
hey, you know what though? You know what? If they want to come and they want to give me views, keep coming. I don't care. If you want to come in and talk as much crap as you want, I don't care. But look, I also cover Clemson too. So you know how great it was for me to go and watch Arkansas pull off that comeback win against Miami and then watch Ian Schifflin just destroy Kentucky. I mean, the dude, did you watch that game last night?
I caught part of it, yeah.
So Ian Schifflin, he's 6'8", and he is just a rebound machine, right? And they were pulling some Oscar Tshiebwe comps, but he's not nearly as aggressive. He's way more finesse, like a guy and he's husky, right? He's not like a long 6'8" or anything like that. He looks like normal build, just in a little bit husky. The dude can just, do some fadeaway stuff. The only thing he's not very good at this year is the 3-point shot. But dude, he was killing it. He almost he was 1 point away from a double-double at halftime against Kentucky. And you know what? That tells that I feel like Arkansas with their length is going to do a little bit better job than what Kentucky fans think they're going to do whenever they play them later this season. Because Arkansas, they've got a lot of length. And if Victor Larkin is giving you trouble like he did, trust me, Big Z is going to give you trouble too. Okay. So so just calm down in the comments, but still, no, great game. I really think it said more about Clemson than it did about Kentucky, if I'm being honest though. Kentucky, I still feel is a good basketball team. Jackson Robinson, he was doing good too. I hate seeing him in a Kentucky uniform, but it's how it goes now. But if we're talking about tonight, Auburn Duke tied 32-32 right now, 3 minutes and 55 seconds left. Mississippi State is up big on Pitt, 47-25 at halftime. Texas is up by 2 on NC State at halftime. Vanderbilt is up by 5 feet on Virginia Tech. So they could very well go 15-1 in this challenge, which is that is crazy because the ACC historically great conference.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at games that already went final too. You had Alabama beat North Carolina 94-79, nearly 20 points. And North Carolina is usually one of those teams that they're going to be good year in, year out. And Alabama is showing, that they're seem to be the real deal this year. 7-2, 2 losses on the season. Florida gets the win over Virginia, 87-69. Earlier today, like you said, you have the games left to tip off tonight. None left for.
Yeah, that's those last four are already going, and those are the last four in the challenge.
Yeah. So, like you said, if the SEC goes, with one loss throughout the SEC AC's challenge, that would be crazy because, like you said, usually the ACC is one of the more dominant conferences as a whole in basketball. But to see over the past few years, you've seen I hate to use the word power shift, but a power shift essentially in college basketball where the SEC has, usually it's just one or two teams that's, pretty decent. You've had to expand 3, 4, or 5. I mean, you look at last year, you have Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas A&M during different times of the season, Ole Miss, LSU at times. So you're starting to see some of that talent even out, and I think you can, that's all due to the transfer portal. You're having guys you can be able to go out and get that's going to be able to contribute right away, and that's going to, I think it's instantly, or in college basketball, it's much easier to transform a team in one season than it is with football because you're only playing 5 guys. So you bring in 1, 2, 3 guys, you can instantly change the dynamic and the talent of your team in one off season compared to football. Yeah, you can bring in some transfer portal guys. Some of those are going to be able to contribute right away, but they're not going to just insanely change your program in one off season. I mean, there's a few asterisks or, quote unquote, lightning in a bottle that you'll catch. I mean, perfect example is that in college football. Look at Indiana, brought in a ton of transfers and, had a pretty successful season. But at the end of the day,
but they also got a coach that is pretty darn good too. So
true,
But
yeah, at the end of the day, getting back to the topic, it was good to see Arkansas get the road win. They're coming back home Saturday against UTSA. So if you have the chance to get out there, go support them. And then it's to New York to play in Madison Square Garden, one of the biggest atmospheres in college basketball. Talk about the TV time and the publicity. Arkansas is going to get out there with just the whole storyline of Cal to Arkansas. They're going to talk about that. 2 coaches that are in year 1 at their new program with Dusty Mays at Michigan going over from FAU. So, Nelly Davis is going to be playing against his old coach.
Yeah.
There. So, there's a few storylines to look at there. And then, like you said, you have just a handful of games before it's time to ramp up conference play in January. I mean, you come back home from New York, you go to Little Rock, play UCA. Come back home, you play North Carolina A&T, and then you wrap up your non-conference schedule with Oakland at home, which may not mean something to everybody, but if you remember, Oakland's the team that knocked John Calipari out at Kentucky last season. So not that he might hold a grudge, but I'm sure that's a game he would probably like to get a win in, even though he's at Arkansas now. And then, that following Saturday, January 4th, we open up conference play on the road at a very tough Tennessee team. And then your first home conference game will be Wednesday, January 8th versus Ole Miss. So,
and I don't really like Bud Walton's schedule this year, but it is what it is. But we need people to come in and cheer on the team whenever we have. It doesn't matter if it's Ole Miss that's coming in. We need people there. I'm not even sure what the best game at home this year is.
I was about to say, you look at your home conference games. We'll just run through the schedule real quick. You have Ole Miss, Florida at home, Georgia, Oklahoma, Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Texas. So and Mississippi State.
So
Your best game is
Alabama
probably
would be big.
Alabama. And then
you're gonna have
Texas is probably going to be big just because of historically the rivalry just between Arkansas, Texas, and for Texas, you'll have a former player coming back to Bud to play. Tremont Mark playing for Texas,
right?
Transferring out after last season. So another storyline there. But so, like you said, not the greatest schedule in the world for Arkansas at Bud Walton, but there's going to be a few games out there that are going to be some big time matchups.
Hey, Florida and Arkansas too. That's going to be that might be a good one too.
Always a big game too. Last year they got the best of us, but I can remember some times where it's some good games between Arkansas and Florida in Bud, or whether that be in Florida. So, at the end of the day, as we get ready to wrap up here, overall great signing day for Arkansas. I mean, you didn't just blow it out the water, and sign, 10 5-stars, but you went out and you did what I think you could in the position you're in. You keep Tavion Wallace, your highest rated recruit that was trying to be that Florida State was trying to go in and flip. He had 2 last-minute visits there, but, T-Will keeps him on. You have a surprise flip in Madden Amialava, Nico's brother, that's going to be coming in. You got a couple of receivers flipped that you didn't have. So at the end of the day, you've got some guys that are going to be some key pieces that Arkansas needs, whether they contribute right away or a guy that may come in. Yes, it's transfer portal era, but you do sometimes have guys that will come in and develop. Have some guys that can come and do that. And then we'll watch for portal news. We'll keep you updated on portal news. We'll come back and, I'm sure we'll have some talk about on Sunday as we do our recap and talk about UTSA and any other portal additions that we have. But until then, keep a watch for our Twitter pages, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll keep you updated the best we can as it is portal season. And Hawgs basketball is going to start being the main focus. We'll find out. We'll talk about where the bowl game is going to be at once we find that out. Guys that are going to opt out, things of that nature, and what our offense is going to look like, what Pittman says when he finally has a press conference talking about that. So, until then, hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. That way you can be ready to tune in anytime we go live, and we should be back here on Sunday for a recap show talking about the game against UTSA, and like I said, any other portal updates that we get and any news we get regarding Arkansas football and postseason play. So until then, get out there, support the Razorbacks, like and subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast at. And until then, have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you on Sunday.